what's going to happen. She'll never know me. And right before the Laos invasion, I had scheduled and had already scheduled a 2-week leave. And if it would have been a day later, I wouldn't have been able to go. But I did end up coming back to Dubuque and seeing my buddies, because of our aircraft, they had designations on the ship where you knew what unit it was. We had a white dot on ours, and seeing your buddies blown up because they were covering the Laos invasion, because it went on for about a month and a half, 2 months. And it warped my relationship. One of the times I got knocked down, they came to Dubuque and told my now ex-wife that I was missing. And she never recovered from that. And I don't want her suing me, but I just didn't really understand, and I don't think anybody can at that age.
At that age, no.
And you look back and you go like, poor thing. She went through hell too, so.
You both did. We're gonna kind of speed up a little bit because I do want a couple of other things to talk about. You got out of the service and you started working in a couple of different jobs, and specifically for the medical profession.
I got in the medical. I resigned from the Army to go to medical school. It didn't work out. I had to repeat a course and I didn't get to do it. So, but I ended up in the commercial side of it, in the medical field. Started out in the open heart surgery products business. First time I was in there, I quit smoking, drinking, and eating bad foods. And then one day I remember they brought in this football player from the Birmingham Americans or something. It was the old USFL. I mean, Mr. Perfect body. Massive coronary artery disease. I go, well, if he's got it, what chance have I got? Give me a beer and cigarette. But I was in that, and then I got into the field of diagnostic ultrasound in the early stages, back when it was a blip on the screen, and went through it the whole time and worked my way up. I had a very successful career that in the late 80s was ended because I took a bad medical product off the market, got fired for it, and then the rest is, the media again. We find out. And it's...
Well, you were labeled a
whistleblower. Yeah. And it's funny because I could have got 50 years in prison and $500,000 in fines if I hadn't done what I did, but that never comes up. Never was ever mentioned. And
I
was on the networks and all that stuff,
but you got a product off the shelves.
The interesting thing is that most of that all occurred in the late 80s.
What was wrong with it?
It would misdiagnose, and it was misbranded. And my father, I got to give him credit, he's a crusty old World War II veteran. He's still alive, he's in his mid-80s. And he was Battle of the Bulge. We didn't have much of anything, and we kept fighting, and turns out the FDA went after the 5th largest corporation in the world, and it was the largest enforcement action in the history of the Food and Drug Administration. And their lead lawyer was Ken Starr. Did that make the local Dubuque paper? No. No, they didn't want that.
Well, one other thing that we're going to touch on, because our time is getting short here, is Agent Orange and Agent White. The reason why I'd like to talk about it is that Agent Orange was a defoliant, it was a herbicide. The thing is it was used in Vietnam because it was used for 3 different goals. It had 3 different goals. The first one was to clear the jungle, of course, so you could see the enemy. The second was so that you'd kill the ground, so these people couldn't grow a crop and feed themselves. And the third reason was to make sure that it cleared the area around the U.S. bases, because you mentioned the concertina wire. Well, you wanted to kill the vegetation which would grow up in between.
Well, vegetation grew very fast over there.
It did. And the thing is we saw the map, and we saw that war zone C and D was on it. Well, that's where the highest concentration was, and that's where you were.
Yeah, I mean, the first tour I flew, I was an infantry officer.
And the thing is okay, so it's a herbicide. It's a great herbicide. It kills plants, but
it also was outlawed in the United States prior to it being used in Vietnam. And the dosage over in Vietnam Well, the dosage that the farmers in Iowa used was 5% of what they used in Vietnam.
And the thing is, they found that, okay, it kills the plants,
but it's
toxic.
It's toxic to the human body.
And animals.
I've had 8 bouts of cancer.
Yes, let's talk about that.
And of those 8, 5 different types. Diabetes, which is related, has been proven to be what they call equivalent to, in other words, you don't have to prove it.
Well, you mentioned an interesting term. You said presumptive
condition.
Conditions.
You can show that you were in Vietnam and you've got any one of the following of this laundry list.
Okay.
You have a rating determination made on you.
And you're talking about cancer and heart disease.
Heart disease, cancer, diabetes. I got them all. In fact, I think from combat Vietnam, I'm 100. They give me an extra bonus or pension because I'm housebound, but they know I'm not housebound because I've got so many. Well, 2 tours. Think of how much exposure I got. Because my second tour, the first 6 months, I lived underground. When I was a pilot with the 25th, there was, we had to, the only thing above ground was the aircraft because we got hit every day. So, I'm sure I glow in the dark. But the scary part of it is, and especially with my because I used to teach in a medical school ultrasound, both obstetrics and I did clinical research in vascular, and is that I have I've been, as you well know, I'm remarried. I have a 13-year-old daughter now, and there's a high incidence rate of spinal bifida.
So
when when she was
when your wife was pregnant with her, was that a concern?
Yes, it was. And then there is the worst kind of AML, leukemia. The worst kind is attributed to it. And then there's so many veterans out there suffering. And then it's just an interesting book out, Waiting for an Army to Die. Because let's say I was diagnosed with diabetes today. Well, obviously I can prove I was in Vietnam. It'd be 2 years before they determine. It took me 8 years of fighting with the VA. And I'm like, and they only gave me a year to live in 1996. So they thought, but I outlived them, so. But it's sad. I'm one of the lucky ones. I had the education and background to fight them. The average vet doesn't. And then you got these young kids coming home from Iraq, and from what I have followed, it's going to be worse.
It is.
And they're not doing a thing about it.
Well, we're sort of at the end of our time right now, but I do have one last question to ask you, and that is, how do you think the Vietnam War affected you?
Oh, I don't know. I think it made me a very aware individual.
You already mentioned earlier that you are very proud of your service.
Sure. Well, not so much. I'm proud to have served. I have no regrets. I don't feel sorry for myself. Because no matter how much crap I go through with all these little afflictions I have, or little issues we'll call them.
Issues,
Still had a long life that a lot of people I know didn't. A lot of personal friends of mine didn't come home.
Right.
So I can't complain at all. And God has been good to me, so I really, can't complain.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much for coming today and telling us your story.
Hope I wasn't too long-winded.
No. Not at all. Although I'm going to have them turn off the lights at the end and see if you truly do glow in the dark.
Oh. So, anyway. Thank you very much.
I'm Pauline Maloney, and this has been The Warriors Vietnam War. I'd like to have you all listen towards the end here when we roll our credits, because we will be playing that transmission that Mike told us about earlier in the program. So until I see you the next time, goodbye.